Friends, welcome to Read to Me, Matt Dunn. I'm Matt Dunn, and I'm going to read to you. So, we are on part 3 of The Color Out of Space by H.P. Lovecraft. Part 3. Well, we know where we left off. We got scientists going after this meteor back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, let's just say 1880s. And they're just hitting at it with a hammer. It's just dissolving, heating up, burning things, doing weird stuff. Unknown compound. And they still can't figure it out. Well, let's see. Oh, yeah. That night, there was a thunderstorm. And when the professors went out to Nene's, I don't know his fucking name, Naham, we're gonna go Nene. When the professors went to Nene's the next day, they met with a bitter disappointment. The stone, magnetic as it had been, must have had some peculiar electrical property, for it had drawn the lightning, as Nene said, with a singular persistence. 6 times within an hour, the farmer saw the lightning strike the furrow in the front yard, and when the storm was over, nothing remained but a ragged pit by the ancient well sweep, half choked and half choked with caved-in earth. That's it. Just like a pit that just keeps falling in. Digging had borne no fruit, and the scientists verified the fact of the utter vanishment. The failure was total, so that nothing was left to do but to go back to the laboratory and test again the disappearing fragment left carefully cased in lead. I say. That fragment lasted a week, at the end of which nothing of value had been learned of it. When it had gone, no residue was left behind, and in time the professors felt scarcely sure they had indeed seen with waking eyes that cryptic vestige of the fathomless gulfs outside, that lone, weird message from other universes and other realms of matter, force, and entity. As was natural, the Arkham papers made much of the incident with its collegiate sponsoring and sent reporters to talk with Nene Gardner and his family. At least one Boston daily also sent a scribe, and Nene quickly became a kind of local celebrity. He was a lean, genial, He was a lean, genial person of about 50, living with his wife and 3 sons on the pleasant farmstead in the valley. He and Amy exchanged visits frequently, as did their wives, and Amy had nothing but praise for him after all these years. He seemed slightly proud of the notice his place had attracted, and talked often of the meteorite in the succeeding weeks. That July and August were hot, and Nene worked hard at his haying in the 10-acre pasture across Chapman's Brook. His rattling wain wearing deep ruts in the shadowy lanes between. The labor tired him more than it had in other years, and he felt that age was beginning to tell on him. Then fell the time of fruit and harvest. The pears and apples slowly ripened, and Nene vowed that his orchards were prospering as never before. The fruit was growing to phenomenal size and unwanted gloss, and in such abundance that extra barrels were ordered to handle the future crop. But with the ripening came sore disappointment, for all the gorgeous array, for all of the of that gorgeous array of specious what the fuck? Oh my god. God damn it, H.P. Lovecraft. For of all that gorgeous array of specious lusciousness, not one single jot was fit to eat. Into the fine flavor of the pears and apples had crept a stealthy bitterness and sickishness, so that even the smallest of bites induced a lasting disgust. It was the same with the melons and tomatoes, and Nene sadly saw that his entire crop was lost. Quick to connect events, he declared that the meteorite had poisoned the soil, and thanked heaven that most of the other crops were in the upland lot along the road. Yeah, you derb. Winter came early, and it was very cold. Amy saw Nene less often than usual and observed that he had begun to look worried. The rest of his family, too, seemed to have grown taciturn, and were far from steady in their church-going or their attendance at the various social events of the countryside. For this reserve or melancholy no cause could be found, though all the household confessed now and then to poor health and feeling of vague disquiet. Nene himself gave the most definite statement of anyone when he said he was disturbed about certain footprints in the snow. They were the usual winter prints of red squirrels, white rabbits, and foxes, but the brooding farmer professed to see something not quite right about their nature and arrangement. He was never specific, but appeared to think that they were not as characteristics of the anatomy and habits of squirrels and rabbits and foxes as they ought to be. Amy listened without interest to this talk until one night when he drove past Nene's house in his sleigh on the way back from Clark's Corner. There had been a moon, and a rabbit had run across the road, and the leaps of that rabbit were longer than either Amy or his horse liked. The latter, indeed, had almost run away when brought up by a fire with a firm rein. Thereafter, Amy gave Nene's tail more respect and wondered why the gardener dogs seemed to cow and quiver every morning. They had, it developed, nearly lost the spirit to bark. For what reason, I don't know. All right. Let's lose this book cover. Who needs book covers these days? We're not in a fucking library. Much better. Let's continue. In February, the McGregor boys from... I'm just kidding. This ain't no ASMR. In February, the McGregor boys from Meadow Hill were out shooting woodchucks, and not far from Gardner Place bagged a very particular specimen. The proportions of its body seemed slightly altered in a queer way impossible to describe, while its face had taken on an expression which no one ever saw in a woodchuck before. Okay. The boys were genuinely frightened and threw the thing away at once, so that only their grotesque tale of it ever reached the people of the countryside. But the shying away of the horses near Nene's house had now become an acknowledged thing, and all the basis for a cycle of whispered legends was fast taking form. People vowed that the snow melted faster at Nene's than it did anywhere else, and early in March there was an odd discussion in Potter's general store at Clark's Corner. Stephen Rice had driven past Gardner's in the morning. Okay, I'm the bad reader. Stephen Rice. Know it. Blah, 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 blah. Clark's Corner. Stephen Rice had driven past Gardner's in the morning and had noticed the skunk cabbages coming up through the mud by the woods, across the road. By the woods, across the road. Never were things of such size seen before, and they held strange colors that could not be put into any words. What are these skunk cabbages? Stinky cabbages? Their shapes were monstrous, and the horse had snorted at an odor which struck Stephen as wholly unprecedented. That afternoon, several persons drove past to see the abnormal growth, and all agreed that plants of that kind ought never to sprout in a healthy world. The bad fruit of the fall before was freely mentioned, and it was from mouth to mouth that there was poison in Nene's ground. Of course it was the meteorite, and remembering how strange the men from the college had found that stone to be, several farmers spoke of the Several farmers spoke about the matter to them. One day they paid Nene a visit, but having no love of wild tales and folklore, I'm guessing the scientists paid Nene a visit, having no love of wild tales and folklore, having no love of wild tales and folklore, were very conservative in what they inferred. The plants were certainly odd, but all skunk cabbages are more or less odd in shape and odor and hue. Perhaps some mineral elements from the stone had entered the soil, but it would soon be washed away. And as for the footprints and frightened horses, of course this was mere country talk, which such a phenomenon as the aerolite would be certain to start. Whatever, fuck that word. Aerolite. There was really nothing for serious men to do in cases of wild gossip, for superstitious rustics will say and believe anything. And so all through the strange days the professors stayed away in contempt. Only one of them, when given 2 vials of dust for analysis in a police job over a year and a half later, recalled the queer color of that skunk cabbage had been very like one of the anomalous bands of light shewn by the meteorite fragment in the college spectroscope, and like the brittle globule found embedded in the stone from the abyss. The samples in this analysis case gave the same odd bands at first, though later they lost the property. It just disappears within a thing and the thing. The trees. Oh my God, I got so much more to read. The trees budded prematurely around Nene's, and at night they swayed ominously in the wind. Nene's second son, Thaddeus, a lad of 15, swore that they swayed also when there was no wind. Okay, you're getting a little out of hand here, Nene and Nene's son, Thay. But even the gossips would not credit this. Certainly, however, relentlessness was in the air. The entire Gardner family developed the habit of stealthy listening, though not for any sound which they could consciously name. The listening was indeed rather a product of moments when consciousness seemed half to slip away. Unfortunately, such moments increased week by week, till it became common speech that something was wrong with all the Nene's folk. When the early saxifrage Okay, I know a word that sounds like sassafras. I don't know if that's how you pronounce this word, but let's see. When the early SAXIFRAGE came out, it had another strange color. I think it's sassafras. Sassafrag. Saxifrag. Had another strange color, not quite like that of a skunk cabbage, but plainly related and equally unknown to anyone who saw it. Nene took some blossoms to Arkham and shooed them to the editor of the Gazette. The Gazette. But that dignity didn't did no more than write a humorous article about them. Humorous, the fuckers. In which the dark fears of rustics were held up to the polite ridicule. It was a mistake of Nene to tell a stolid city man about the way the great overgrown mourning cloak butterflies behaved in connection with their saxifrages. It was a mistake. April brought a kind of madness to the country folk and began the disuse of the road past Nene's, which led to the ultimate abandonment. It was the vegetation. All the orchid trees blossomed forth in strange colors, and through the stony soil of the yard and adjacent pasturage, there sprang up a bizarre growth, which only a botanist could connect with the proper flora of the region. No sane, wholesome colors were anywhere to be seen except in the green grass and leafage, but everywhere, those hectic prismatic variants of some diseased underlying primary tone without a place among the known tints of earth. The Dutchman's breeches became a thing of sinister menace, and the blood roots grew insolent in their chromatic perversion. Amy and the gardeners thought that most of the colors had a sort of haunting familiarity, and decided that they reminded one of the brittle globules in the meteor. Nene plowed and sowed the 10-acre pasture and the upland lot, but did nothing with the land around the house. He knew it would be of no use, and hoped that the summer's strange growth would draw all the poison from the soil. He was prepared for almost anything now, and had grown used to the sense of something near him waiting to be heard. The shunning of his house by neighbors told on him, of course, but it told on his wife more. The boys were better off, being at school each day, but they could not help being frightened by the gossip. Thaddeus, an especially sensitive youth, suffered the most. Poor Thay. Oh my goodness gracious, young Thaddeus. What is he like? 10? You can't just make shit up in your head. Poor boy. Poor little lad. Oh, I'm going to stop there. We're going to do part 4, 3, whatever. I don't know what part I'm on. But I do know, if you want to listen to me read some more, please check out some more of my videos. Like, subscribe, and comment down below. Hi, Mom.